All right, so first things first, while we're waiting for the last few people to roll in, how many people, here's what I would love to hear first. I would love to hear what action you took in the last week, be it setting up the accounts, be it looking at your personal expenses at a deeper level, writing out that 5-year vision. I'd like to hear what people actually did. You know, you spent the entire time with us for 2 hours. You came back. So my hope is in between that we actually did something. So anybody who wants to jump in, just unmute yourself and share what did you do in between today and last week?
I went out and watched the Ray Dalio video that you recommended on how the economy works.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, my minor was economics, and he explained it far better than any undergrad class I ever had.
Right? Yeah, it's crazy.
So simple brilliance in that.
Exactly. He literally took what is somewhat complicated and boiled it down very, very simple. And it is powerful. Like when you really have a grasp of how the entire system works, it's powerful. Yeah, so I love that. What else?
I thought I got all the fat out of my budget. It's funny, I'm starting after I take a look at my P&L every month, I take a look and I always find some stuff. I mean, I found this $3 a month fax service, which I haven't used a fax service in a long time. Mm-hmm. Little stuff, but also the personal stuff. Save money on streaming TV. I canceled satellite service and I'm using streaming exclusively. Saved $100 on that a month. I got rid of Netflix too, which I think for some people is like, kind of major stuff. But for me, I wasn't watching it that much.
Yeah, I admit I just took a deep breath when you said that.
I still have all the others. I have Amazon Prime and a couple other services, but I just, I don't do a lot of Netflix for some reason. The only one I watched recently was that, was the one with The Irishman with, was that the name of that movie? With Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci. That's the only one. You could rent that. It was like 3.5 hours. I think.
Yep.
I said that's it.
So I'll tell you a funny story about going fully streaming and cutting the cable. Not the house I live in now, but the prior house when we first moved in. No cable, no satellite, no nothing. Went fully streaming, which to me was perfectly fine. And then I was going on a business trip, and when I got back, we had satellite TV. So apparently my wife was not happy with the streaming content. So we ended up with all of those and satellite. All right, what else did we get done in the last week? So that is awesome. I appreciate that, Dean.
I updated a personal balance sheet and put together a multi-year retirement plan because my wife and I are getting close to that. She and I are in business together. So we sat down and agreed upon where we stand now and where we want to get to, so that we can then match the business financials to those personal objectives.
I love that. And by the way, John, if I forget, remind me at some point. Matt, you wanted to share a resource with me and everybody else that could be helpful there. So there's an event coming up next month that I'm gonna share with you guys that I think will be really valuable, and it ties into exactly what you just said. So that's awesome.
Good, thanks. How are you?
All right, what else? Let's take 2 more and then we'll move on.
I'll jump in.
Darnell, what do you got?
I'm Darnell. So what I did was I finally opened up my Mint account. I noticed that I was keeping CVS in business way too much by spending, miscellaneous dollars on drinks and stuff like this at CVS, trying to get those extra reward bucks. And then third, my wife and I, we set a date for a goal planning weekend next month for 2021.
All right, so just because it's come up so many times, I'm going to share now. And I'll get you the dates. Cassie, if you want to drop the link for the One Thing website, you should be able to find the event on there, but I'll get you the exact dates, but I believe it is November 14th and 15th, which is a Saturday and a Sunday. Jay Papasan does a couples goal setting retreat every year all around the One Thing where essentially you go with your significant other and you focus on your personal goals, business goals, right? The idea is to be able to go through that process together, get clarity, get alignment. Because of COVID, it's obviously a virtual event this year. So I believe it's November 14th and 15th. It's a full day on Saturday, half day on Sunday. And it's a great event for exactly what a couple of you just mentioned, is actually going with your significant other, doing that planning together. And again, making sure you both have clarity and you have alignment in why you're doing what you're doing. So I think that's a great resource. And as we go through some of the content today, I think that's also a really good follow-up. I'm going to give you a couple of resources today and at the end of our last session of just things that you can engage in after the fact to help just kind of keep moving, A, your education around business and personal finances, and B, just keep feeding those habits as you go along. So I'm going to share some of those resources, but that's one that I think could be very helpful. So I think Monique is posting the link.
And sometimes they may need.
Yep.
more, like a
Yep, I shared it.
I believe you can find the link to register there. Okay. All right, so let's kick off. All right, so on our last session, we focused primarily around personal financial management. So today these are the bullets that we're going to hit throughout the day today. So one, we're going to focus on setting our business goals based on funding year one of our perfect life. So the reason I wanted everybody to take the time to write that letter to themselves 5 years out is I really wanted to get the wheels turning about where you want to be further down the road, right? So that we can then back up and say, okay, based on where I want to be in 5 years, where do I need to be in a year? Personally, professionally, and then what does my business actually have to do in order to fund where I need to be in a year in order to be on track for where I want to be in 5 years, right? So it's kind of that idea of how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time. We're just trying to take that big vision and start whittling it down to simplify. So a lot of the time we're going to spend together today is kind of that process, right? We're going to be chopping that elephant down into smaller bite sizes, if that hopefully does not paint a gruesome picture. So these are the bullets we're going to focus on. Set the business goals based on funding year one of the perfect life. We're going to focus on identifying the activities and the results that we need in our business in order to create the income necessary to fund the life. We're going to talk about setting our business budget and how we stick to that budget. We're going to talk about keeping a P&L and what the real value of a profit and loss statement is. A lot of us tend to think a profit and loss statement is just a necessary evil that is required in order to file taxes. It's actually much more important than that. So we're going to talk about why that matters to you and what it can do for your business. We're going to talk about how we compensate ourselves. We're going to talk about reserves. So a lot of this is going to be reflective of some of what we talked about on our first session. We're just taking it into the business world this time. Okay, sound good? Thumbs up? Sweet. All right. So we're also, I'm going to do the best I can with the time we have, and I believe we have a guest at the end of the call today, to get some of the work done so we're not just talking and listening. So I'm going to ask Monique to share some things in the chat box, some documents that you guys can print. If you're not in a position to be able to print, all you need is a blank piece of paper. If you can see the document, you can draw it, right? So nothing is going to be complicated. But I do want to give us time to actually work on some of what we're going to talk about as much as we can with the time we have. All right, so we're going to kick off. So when we left off, we were here and we talked about the 5 year, right? So we sent you off to do that vision of preparing for New Year's Eve. It's 5 years out. You're reflecting back on all your accomplishments, everything that you have in your life that you're proud of, all of those things so that we could start to crystallize that vision. What I want to do is kind of walk you through this path. And this is actually, for those of you that are with Keller Williams, this is kind of the process a market center owner and team leader go through as they're preparing their goals for a market center. So we start out with what we call guerrilla warfare. Guerrilla warfare is basically just market research, right? We're finding out based on the market that we're working in, how many people live there, how many agents exist there, how many transactions happen, what's the average sales price. So when we go back to, at one point we talked about setting SMART goals, and one of those letters represents realistic. Realistic doesn't mean easy, right? It doesn't mean we're thinking small. Realistic just means, is it actually possible? Guerrilla warfare is intended for us to find out what it is that we're working with, so that we can find out, is it actually possible to accomplish my goal in the market that I'm in, right? If your goal is to sell 8,000 homes and only 5,000 homes sell in your market, then you're obviously not going to sell 8,000 homes, or you're going to have to move outside of your market in order to sell that many homes, right? So that's guerrilla warfare. When I talk about the someday goal, this is how I'm going to frame it, and we're not going to spend a lot of time here. I call it designing your Disney, right? And here's how I would encourage you to do it. Number one, start off with just a blank piece of paper, right? In the middle is a circle with you. Off of that, you start to draw all the things that are part of your life, or you would choose to have part of your life at some point. So for me, this drawing the Disney, this is where we get to be childish. Like, I'm not worrying about how I'm going to do it, when I'm going to do it. Is it even possible if I can do it? I'm just sitting there and saying, someday I actually want to be a best-selling author, actor, and president of the United States, whatever, right? It's our opportunity to just be childish and put all those things. We want to start a charity, whatever it is we want to do. We're just putting all those things on paper to get those thoughts, ideas, and dreams out of our head and onto a piece of paper. Okay, so that's kind of, again, I call it drawing your Disney. What it does is it gets it out of your head into something you can see. And when you see it, over time, you start to think about it more, and you start to decide how many of these things are just an idea, right? And how many of them are things that are really important to us that we might actually want to put time, energy, and effort into moving forward. From there, we go to our 5-year goal. Our 5-year goal, obviously, is if I am moving towards this someday Disney world that I've created on paper without worrying about the how or if, where would I need to be in 5 years to be moving in that direction, right? That's the exercise I left you guys with on the last session. Then we say, okay, again, in order to be on that path, where do I need to be in 12 months? Then we get down to kind of where the rubber meets the road a little bit, okay? So one, again, I took this slide out of the process that we use as a market center, as a real estate brokerage office, but it lays over your sales business 100%, right? It's the same thing. The only thing I'm going to say about this piece, owner profit gap analysis, here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to give you a metric that every one of you should know in your business, and that is your profit as a percent of GCI. That is like a little magic number that we should all know about our business, right? So if you're running a brokerage, that's profit as a percent of, we would call it at Keller Williams, profit as a percent of company dollar. How much revenue comes in that is available to pay the bills, profit share, and allow the owners and the investors to have profit. In your case, that revenue is GCI, right? Profit as a percent of GCI tells you how much money makes it to the bottom line, right? After you pay referral fees, pay your broker, pay team members, pay your expenses, after all of that, what percent of every dollar that comes in the door do you actually get to keep? The reason that's an important number is if you know it, it becomes a really simple way to figure out if I want to net $250,000, $100,000, $1 million, whatever the number is, you can actually immediately back in by taking that number, dividing it by that percentage, and it's going to tell you how much GCI you would have to produce. Right? So if you know that number, you can do napkin math to figure out what would I actually have to do in my business in order for me to walk away with X amount of dollars. Right? And then from there, the math becomes simple. You can say, okay, well, in order for me to do X amount in GCI, my average commission is this. I would have to sell X number of homes. And very quickly you figure out, in order for me to walk away and take X amount of money home to my family, I would have to produce this amount of GCI, which means I would have to close this amount of transactions. So it's a really simple, it's a really powerful number that allows you to backtrack from where you want to be to what you have to do very simply. Does that make sense? Thumbs up, nods. Good, cool. All right, so then we're going to go to GPS. So show of hands, how many people have seen a GPS before? Okay. How many people have done a GPS before? Okay, all right, good. And actually, before we do that, so I'm going to bounce around the slides a little bit here. So let me go to, I'm first going to show you what the GPS is going to look like. So here's the concept of a GPS. What you're looking at on the screen is a template for a GPS. GPS stands for goal, priority, and strategy, okay? The idea behind it is this. It is your ability to put a business plan on a single piece of paper. Where this becomes most important, I personally think it's a super powerful tool no matter what. I admit I actually geek out on GPSs. You can solve almost every problem on the planet with a GPS. Not quite. But you can take a problem and break it down to this simple very quickly using this process. The idea is what is, right, the one thing, what is the goal for the year? The number one thing in my business that I intend to achieve, right? So that's the one thing, that's the goal. This is my personal advice. And by the way, if you take classes with different people, you're going to hear a little bit of different advice on this. This is my personal advice. If you are doing a GPS for your sales business, in my opinion, my humble opinion, your goal should be defined in after-tax net profit, period. Okay, you see a lot of people who set their goal based on units, based on GCI, and some people will sometimes tell you to set your goals based on units, based on total commission, all those different things. I'm not saying they're wrong. What I'm saying is, here's the challenge. If you decide, and this is a real scenario, I once met with one of my agents who set the goal to close 80 transactions. He asked me to meet with him so we could work on a GPS together. I said, absolutely. Here's the things I need you to bring. I need you to bring your personal financial, your personal P&L, your business P&L, a couple other things that we needed. We pulled all his production numbers from the previous year. We got together. And here's what we figured out. We whiteboarded everything out, and had this agent hit their goal of 80 transactions based on everything as it was, they actually would have been in the hole after taxes $30,000. How crazy is that? Can you imagine setting a goal of closing 80 transactions, which is a significant amount of real estate, accomplishing it, and at the end of it going, how is it possible that I'm in the hole 30 grand? When you looked at personal expenses, business expenses, and tax liability, that's where it was going to land. This is why when we set a goal based on units or based on volume, in my opinion, we leave out a lot of the business conversation. We leave out expenses, we leave out tax strategies, we leave out strategies around raising average commission. We leave out a whole bunch of strategies, and we get tunnel vision on one thing and one thing only, which is production. That is one half of the business. That's offense. Nobody wins a football game playing one side of the field. You got to play offense and defense. So again, my humble opinion, that one thing for your sales business is always net profit after taxes, okay? Then we go down to priorities. So that's your P, and you also hear this called a 135, by the way. If somebody's talking about a 135 is a GPS is 135, it's the same thing. And by the way, this was developed by Gary Keller, and what he said is, if your business plan doesn't fit on a single page, how can you possibly know that everybody in your organization is on the same page? That's why I created a GPS, okay? So we have our one thing. So here's what I would like you to do first. It's okay if it has to change, just off the cuff, write down what that number would be. And I'm not going to ask you to share it. Just write down, what would you choose your after-tax income to be in 2021? Okay, and this is where I'm going to jump around a little bit because I want to make sure this actually flows and makes sense. So write that number down. You're going to need a blank.
After-tax income or profit?
After-tax income. So profit after taxes. So I want to go home with $100,000. I want to go home with $250,000. Taxes paid, expenses paid. That's my money to go do what I choose with.
What the percentage of the taxes and the expenses will be?
So right now it's irrelevant, right? Because all we're saying is, what do you want to keep? Afterwards, it's going to become irrelevant. But right now, we're just asking the flat question.
Oh, okay.
All said and done, business expenses paid, taxes paid, I want to go home with 100 grand, 200 grand, 300 grand, 400 grand, a million, whatever that number is. Okay. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to look at the screen, and on a piece of paper, you're going to need a calculator. I want you to run through this math. I'm going to show you another place that you can do it as well, but right now I actually want you to do this math. So at the very top would be your net income. Now, for the high C's in the room, if we follow this perfectly, you're skipping taxes. Okay, so if you look at the top of this slide, it starts with net profit, not after tax net profit. Okay, for the sake of us being able to do this in this environment, in this group, here's what I'm going to say. And it's not perfect math. So all the high C's, I acknowledge it's not perfect math. Take that number, whatever your tax bracket is or would be in that profit category. Just do a rough calculation. If it's $1 million and that's going to add $250,000 in taxes, make that top net income 1.25. Right, so just add roughly what you believe the taxes would be, 20%, 30% on the amount you choose to keep, and put that in for the net income. Okay, so you're going to start with that number. So if it's 100,000 is what you want to take home, and you have to earn 120,000 to keep 100, then you'll put 120 in there, and then we're going to go through and do the math. Okay, so we're going to start with that. Next is going to be operating expenses. If you do not know your operating expenses, number one, you've got to fix that. You can't run a business and not know what it costs you to run a business. And if you don't know, the MREA model, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent Budget Model, if you break it down to its absolute simplest form, is a 30-30-40 model. What that means is 30% of your revenue is going to go to cost of sale. Cost of sale is an expense that only happens when you close a transaction. So that would be a referral fee, that would be a split with your broker, that would be a split with a team member, right? Those are typically the three things, right? So the MREA budget model is 30-30-40, 30% cost of sale, 30% expenses, 40% profit. Okay, depending on the volume of business you're at, it might go down a little and the margin might go up or down a little. However, that's the model at its simplest level. So if you don't know the number, in operating expenses, put 30% of whatever your top line number was.
Matt, I have two questions that came in.
Yep.
One is, what does GCI stand for?
Gross commission income. And yes, please, if I use an acronym, please don't be here wondering what I meant. Please pause me because I do it a lot on accident. So if I say something that doesn't make sense, please ask. What was the second one?
What is the model for solo agents? It's not 30-30-40, but they don't remember.
It actually is. If you look at the MREA model, at the level of production where you typically would be an individual agent, it's a 30-30-40 model. Now, again, here's where you can tweak it a little. If you're an individual agent, your cost of sale, depending on your production, might not be 30%, right? So again, there's intricacies that you can go in and out of all day long, but in order to do it in this environment, in this group, we're going to have to make some assumptions, go through the math, and then afterwards you can go back and say, well, you know, I produce $10 million a year and I do it on my own and my cap is 24,000. So my cost of sale is only 24,000. That's not 30% of my GCI, right? And my expenses are actually 30%. You can do that math, okay? So for the sake of this, because every single person here is going to have something unique, right? So if you don't know your expenses, 30%. If you don't know your cost of sale, use 30%. If you are an individual agent with no team members, you can arguably just put your cap there, and that should be accurate, other than a referral fee here and there.
What about new agents who aren't established yet?
Oh, no.
If you're a new agent, do it remember, we're doing this based on our goal. So if you're a new agent and your goal is to earn X, that's what we're doing the math off of. So if you're a new agent and let's say, I'll just make it up, you want to make $100,000, you should assume you'll have expenses of about 30,000. You can just use your cap as your cost of sale, because that, for the most part, will be your only cost of sale. You're going to add those numbers to the net income above, and that's going to give you a total GCI that you have to produce. Okay, so at this point, I know doing math with this many people in a virtual environment is like super dangerous, but so far, is everybody tracking? Just like throw in the chat box if you're lost. All right, good to go. So what I want you to do is just follow the page and fill in the blanks. So after that, you're going to say, what is my average commission? If you do not know what your average commission is because you're a new agent, guess. You can fix it later. I know in my market, the average sales price is about $230,000. The average commission is about $5,600, right? It's going to be different in every single market, but just guess. You know about what the average sales price is in your market. You can factor a commission after that. Again, you can go back and change this. The point is to understand it more than anything. You can always go back and tweak. So average commission. Then we're going to divide that total GCI number by the average commission. That's going to tell us how many houses we have to sell. Okay. If everyone can do me a favor, just do thumbs up in the screen when you're tracking, you're there. That way I know I can move quickly. Okay. Lots of thumbs up. Good. All right. Next, we're going to decide what % of those closings are going to be buy side and what % are going to be sell side. Right. So you're just going to say, is my business typically 50-50? It's half buyers, half sellers. Am I heavy on buyers rather than sellers? Right. If you're a new agent, I would argue you can put in 50-50. However, oftentimes we tend to do more buy sides early on in our business. That's not always true, and you certainly can make a decision to make that not true. So make, again, for the sake of exercise, half and half, 60-40. You're just splitting the business up, how much is going to be on each side. Then do the math. So if it's 50-50, that means I'm going to do 175 sale sides and 175 buy sides. Okay. Then we're going to do the % of agreements to close. So in other words, how many listing agreements do I need to get in order to close? How many buyer broker agreements do I need to get to close? If you don't know those numbers, these are out of the MREA, so just use them. Okay, so you're going to take that 175, divide it by 70%. I'm on the left side right now. And that means that's going to get you 250,000 or 250 on the screen. Okay, so we said we're going to close 350 units, half are going to be sell side. That's 175 sale side closings, list side closings. 70% of the listings I take turn into closings. So I divided 175 by 70. That gives me 250 listing agreements I have to take in a year with a 70% success rate in order to close 175. Then it's how many appointments do I need to go on in order to get the listing agreements. Again, this is out of the MREA. If you know your conversion ratio, use it. If you don't, just use the MREA numbers. So this says I have to take 250 listings. If you divide that by 75%, so that means out of 4 listing appointments I go on, I take 3 of them. That's going to tell you how many listing appointments you have to go on. So in this example, to do $1 million, I have to go on 333 listing appointments, which is roughly a listing appointment a day. Assuming I get 75% of them, which will give me 250 listings, and assuming that 70% of those end up closing, I will close 175 list side properties. Thumbs up? I literally got 0 thumbs up. Nobody's getting it? Is everybody tracking on their own paper?
Just doing the math.
Okay.
Matt, it's Lena from Boston. We're just doing the math as somebody else said.
Okay, perfect. Do me a favor. When you're done, give me the thumbs up. I just want to make sure I don't move on early or drag it on too long.
People were not expecting a math class today, Matt.
I know. You got to be careful when you hang out with me.
We're agents, not MCAs.
I was never a fan of math until my MAPS coach translated math into being more effective in business. Then all of a sudden math became really interesting.
I may need to set my goals higher.
Who said that?
Nina.
I love that. Well, what is interesting, well, what makes you say that?
Well, because all right, so my goal was 80,000.
Mhm.
Okay. So if that's the case, and I break it all down, that comes out to around 23 units for the year. And if I'm not having 22 appointments a week, like that is so attainable if you break it all down. Like you think, oh my gosh.
How many appointments did you have to have a week to hit that goal?
17 listing agreements, 22, I got 22 on that. Right?
So yeah, that's a year.
Yeah,
22 listings.
that's what I'm saying. Like if I can't do that, there's 52 days in a year.
352.
What'd I say?
52.
52 weeks in a
Or
year.
you cut out. You might have cut out. Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, that is the aha that I hear more often when people run through this math. This again, it's the how do you eat an elephant a bite at a time. You start out saying earn $1 million. Oh my gosh. Now, granted, these are big numbers. So when you're looking at $1 million and you break it down, for some it might still seem like a lot, and it is a lot.
Well, that's why I started with 80,000. I was like, 80. That's a doable number.
Yes. More times than not, when I run through this exercise with somebody, when they get to the appointment piece, all of a sudden they go, oh, okay, well, that's very doable. I can do that. Like I can go on 2 listing appointments a month or 2 a week or whatever the number is. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. If you didn't finish the math, you can keep going while I talk or you can complete it afterwards. So I'm going to go back. The reason I wanted to do this is we set an income goal that we wanted to hit. The next thing we need to know is what kind of results do we have to get in our business in order to generate that income and what kind of activities are involved. Because without that, we can't actually build an intelligent GPS because we'd be guessing at what we have to do and what kind of results we have to generate. Okay, so I'm going to flip back here. Here we go. Oh, let me share this with you also. In Command has, you can go in here and set your goals in Command, and it will walk through very, very similar math with you, and it will come up with similar outcomes, right? It'll tell you what you have to produce. It gives you all the metrics of your business and what they need to be. I personally think it's important to be able to actually do the math pen and paper so you understand it. Once you understand it, use whatever tool gets you to the answer. But I do believe it's important to understand.
Hey,
So if
hey
you
Matt,
haven't-
Matt, it's
Yeah.
Lena.
Lena.
I so agree. I always love doing it by on hand, by hand. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. You know, and then you can go in Command and you can go through the process in Command so you can take advantage of all of what Command does with that goal, because it will match up where are you based on your goals, right? So it's really powerful, and I encourage you to do it on paper first. Okay, so now back to the GPS. So what we know now is how much after-tax income we want to generate from our business. Now we've gone through that exercise and we actually know what the results need to be, right? How many closings, and we also know what the activities need to be. How many appointments do we need to go on? Listing appointments, buyer consultations. How many do we need to take? What does our conversion ratio need to be in order to hit that goal? Now we have enough information to start creating a plan, which is what the GPS is. So here's what we do with the GPS. We have our 1, which is our goal. After that, we pick 3 priorities that we're going to focus on. So here's how I would encourage you to look at it. The 3 priorities are 3 smaller goals that, when accomplished, cause the big goal to happen. Okay? So we're looking at the big goal. I'm just going to use $250,000 in after-tax income. When I get down to priorities, I'm saying, okay, what are 3 goals that I have to set and accomplish that, when accomplished, would automatically cause the top goal to happen? Okay? Right, so a simple way, you could say priority number 1 is I'm going to close 40 listing transactions by December 31st, 2021. I'm going to close X number of buyer transactions by December 31st, 2021. And third, I'm going to reduce my expenses to 30% of my GCI. I'm just making up 3 things, okay? Here's the important thing. Your G, the big goal, the P, which is your priorities, those 3 priorities, they are both outcomes. When you get down to strategies, strategies are actions. The strategies are the things you are going to do in order to cause the outcome to happen. Okay, so priorities are outcomes. The goal is an outcome. The strategies are actions. What am I actually going to do? Okay. Now I'm going to stop sharing for a minute, which always makes me nervous because I never know what's on my 15 screens in front of me. So if you see anything weird, you have my apologies. Let's see. What I want to show you. Where's that going? Getting there. I'm getting there. So here it is. Okay. Let me share this. Share. Okay. Are you guys looking at a GPS now?
Yep.
All right, got it. So this is just a mock GPS that I put. And by the way, please don't hold me to too high of a standard. This is a mock GPS that I threw together to use as an example for us today. So this is kind of the idea of how it would work, right? So we're using that $250,000 in after-tax income. In this scenario, we're saying priority number 1 is I'm going to close 75 transactions by December 31st, 2020, right? In order for that to be a reasonable goal for me, we have to make sure that if I close that number of transactions, it's going to cause this level of income, right? Here's the other thing when we're setting the goals have to be SMART. That means they're specific, they're measurable, they're attainable, they're realistic, and they are time bound, right? So anytime you set a goal, you should be able to say, at any point in time, am I on track for the goal or am I off track? Am I ahead, on track, or behind? There should be a deadline so that when I get to the deadline, I can say, I either hit the goal or I did not. I hit 90% of the goal, I hit 110% of the goal. So it's got to be time bound and it's got to be specific. So in this scenario, we use 75 transactions by December 31st, 2020. Now we go down to a strategy. And the first strategy I have here is 90 minutes of expired prospecting daily. Strategy number 2, I have 60 minutes of need to sell, not want to sell prospecting daily. That's an example of the second year I was in real estate, I realized something had changed. So I was doing all the things that KW taught me to do. I was lead generating every day. I was networking. I was doing all the stuff I believe I'm supposed to do. And I was going on more listing appointments than I had ever gone on before. But an interesting thing was happening is I wasn't taking all the listings anymore. And it wasn't because they were choosing to list with somebody else. They were just choosing not to list. right? So I was doing the work, I was getting the appointments, but suddenly folks were just deciding not to put their house on the market. And what had changed, I'm sure you guys can guess, is the market, right? I went from being the guy who showed up, told them their house was worth $20,000 more than what they thought it was, put it in MLS, spent a week negotiating multiple offers, got them $10,000 more than the $20,000 extra. They thought I was a hero, rinse and repeat. Then all of a sudden the market shifted and shifted hard, and suddenly people were underwater in their homes. So now you were showing up, you were telling them the house was worth less than they thought it was. They're realizing that they weren't in a position to be able to accomplish their real estate goals if they sold right now because of what the market was doing. So at that time, when I sat down and did my GPS, part of my GPS was I have to focus on working with people who need to sell, not want to sell, because this is a need to sell market. What that led to is me creating a list of need to sell clients, potential clients, and that became part of my lead gen every day. I would do my normal database, I would do my expireds and FSBOs, any business to business I was doing, and then after that I focused on need to sell, not want to sell. And I focused on people who could do multiple transactions. So those were two strategies I implemented at that time because of the market shift. What that meant was I went after banks, I went after short sales, I went after probate, I prospected all of those lead sources. The outcome was I had some very ugly inventory. I had tarped roofs, I had shag carpets, right? I had pink kitchens, I had all that stuff. However, the other thing I had was listings, because the market had shrunk so much that a huge percentage of the market was either distressed or need to sell sellers, right? So anyways, that's where that strategy comes from. And I share that just because as you're building your GPS, you need to be thinking about what's happening in the market. And the reality is we should be building a business plan for where the puck is going more so than where the puck is, right? Like what is happening in the market and where do I need to be in order to capitalize on it? Okay. So continuing with the strategies, develop and prospect. Oh, we did that one. Oh, develop and prospect multiple transaction lead sources. Hire buyer agent by December 1st, 2020. 87th level open houses completed by October 31st, 2021. Okay. Now, if you guys were to school me, say, okay, Matt, based on everything you said, here's how you need to fix your GPS, there's actually room for improvement. If we look at develop and prospect daily to multiple transaction lead sources, I can actually get more specific with that, okay? But can you guys see thumbs up, head nods? Can you see the process though? Yeah, okay. So then we go down, our next strategy is increase average income per closing by 20%. We have some strategies, raise the commission from average 5.25 to 5.5, implement multifamily prospecting marketing campaign. That was actually off of my GPS that year. I wanted to raise my average sales price. Multifamilies cost more in my market than the homes I was selling. So I went after that market. Prospect, higher price point expireds. You can see the idea, okay? Here's the important thing. When you're doing your GPS, we start with a big goal. We get down to the priorities. We want to remember the G is an outcome. The P's are outcomes. The strategies are activities. Then when we're done building it out and we feel like we have the right focuses and the right strategies, what we want to do is prioritize them, right? Priority one should actually be the most important thing. I will tell you, if you ask Gary Keller will tell you that your first priority should be so powerful that if it's the only one you did, you'd still hit your goal. That is a really tough bar to meet when you're creating a GPS, and that's what Gary would say. But when you do it, you want to prioritize them. So the thing that has the greatest impact should be number one. The thing that has the next greatest impact should be your second priority. The thing that has the next greatest impact should be your third priority. And then when we do our strategies, we do the same thing. When we're done, we reorganize them based on the ones that have the greatest impact. And there's a reason. This is what we're creating, is a process that we're going to follow to make sure that at the end of the year and throughout the year, we can check in and make sure we're doing the most important things. Okay. Now, another caveat to this. If you have other people involved in your business, after we have prioritized everything in order, and we have made sure it's specific and it's time bound, it meets the SMART criteria, the last thing is, if you have other people in your world, is who's going to do it. Who's going to do it? And their name should go next to it, right? If I go down here and I have somebody who's taking care of finances in my business, that person's name is going to go next to all these finance activities, because I'm not the one that's going to do it. They're going to do it. And where we're going with this is, if you have other people in your business who are doing things, when we create the GPS for the business, we then identify who's responsible for making sure it gets done. And this is going to leave the GPS and go on to their 411. And it's going to go into their calendar, and the accountability that it gets done is going to be from you to them. Your job is to hold them accountable. Their job is to actually do it. Make sense? Cool. Okay. Trying to think if there's any other key points I want to make on the GPS. Any questions? Somebody asked one just to make me feel good. I get weird when I talk to myself for too long. Come on, you're going to let me stand here and feel weird? That's not nice.
You just did a really good job of explaining everything.
Matt, I'll ask a question. The strategies that sit underneath the different priorities,
yep.
Are you saying when you restack them, you're restacking the strategies or restacking the priorities?
Both.
Okay.
Restack the priorities and then restack the strategies. And here's why. And I'm glad you asked that question. Some of these things that are strategies are going to be daily activities, right? Like if it's prospecting 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, that's a strategy that you're going to do every single day, right? So that's going to go into your calendar and be blocked that you do that and you do it every day. Some of it is going to be sort of projects, like a thing you have to go do, right? Like maybe it's developing a farm area, or maybe it's hiring a buyer specialist or your first admin. It's a thing that you have to go do, not a daily activity. The reason you want them in order is, one, you want to make sure the most important things go into your calendar first and take top priority. And then you go down your list and you say, okay, the next most important thing, other than doing my lead gen every day, is finding myself an admin.
Right. So you can sort of peel off your set of strategies at the end of this process, leave your goals, there, and strategies beneath the goals, but then have a separate list of all your strategies, because that becomes the thing that informs your to-do list.
And that's exactly where we're going with this.
Okay.
100%. Yep. So this is going to then move into the next piece, which is the 411. And by the way, I'll say this. So just to put a bow on that conversation. So we're putting them in order for two reasons. One, it tells us what are the most important activities. Those most important activities that are daily activities, those go in our calendar and they repeat every day, right? And we just have to be committed to following the calendar when they're in our calendar. The things that are more projects, like hiring a buyer's agent or an admin, when we look at this, we now have 15 strategies we want to execute. Well, if it's just us in the business, that's overwhelming. It stops being overwhelming when it's like, it's like a toolbox, right? You don't go and gather all the tools and drag them over to the car or the project that you're doing. You go and you get the tool you need and you use it and you put it back and you get the next tool. That's how you use your GPS. So the things that aren't daily habits become, right? So using that simple example, I'm going to lead gen every day. My next one is to hire a buyer's agent, if that's the example. I'm going to lead gen every day. That goes in my calendar and I'm going to honor that. Then I'm going to say, okay, my next priority is to hire a buyer's agent. All of my extra time is being focused towards hiring that buyer's agent. Until I accomplish that goal, then that gets scratched and I move to the next priority. That's how we actually get things done, right? What we tend to do is we try to do 15 things and we get 30% of 15 things done, where we would actually be better off if we did the daily activities that we committed to consistently and accomplished 3 of the 15. But we actually got them done, 100% done. Like I have the buyer's agent, they're crushing it. That has a bigger impact than me accomplishing 30% of 15 things. Okay. So that's why we want to prioritize them. Think of it like a toolbox and taking a piece at a time. If that, I don't know, it might not be a good metaphor, but you're going to be able to go back to it, get the thing that's next, that's most important. That becomes your focus. When it's done, you go get the next, and anyone on your team functions the same way. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the slides here. Are you guys seeing the slides again? You are, okay. All right. Here's the last thing I'll say about the GPS as we carry it forward. If you've never done it, it can feel cumbersome. Just roll with it. Like, don't try to be perfect with it, just roll with it. And I also wouldn't try to be perfect as you do it. Just let it be a brain dump early, go through the process, then go back up and start to clean it up. Right? And just give yourself a little bit of grace. If it's not perfect, right? Have a plan, write it down, write it in pencil. If you're new to doing it, you may come back and make changes to it. That's fine. But just, go through the process, let it be a brain dump early, go back, clean it up, square it away. And if you come back and make changes to it later, that's fine. Right? It's a thing you have to learn. All right. Okay, so here's where we go with the GPS, and I'm going to be super candid. It took me a really long time to buy into the 411. I struggled with it, and I still struggle at some level, but it was only in the last couple of years that I sort of started getting it. Prior to that, I geeked out on 135s and GPSs forever, loved them. But somehow to me, I was like, okay, I have the plan. Why do I have to have this other thing I put it in? I don't get it. Here's the idea. We talked about, we create the plan, we have the daily activities, and now we're taking the daily activities, we're getting them into our calendar, making them a priority, and then we're going back for project type stuff. The 411 is where we bring that stuff before it goes in our calendar. This is actually our personal accountability. And the way they break it down, this is a template. Monique, if you can post in the chat box, we're going to post a 411 and a GPS in Word format and a a 411 in Excel format as well. So you guys can click on the chat box and use those. The other thing too is if you go to theonething.com and it's the number one thing.com, you can download those templates from that website as well. And they have some other cool stuff there. So it's definitely a good place to check out. So here's the template for the 411. What we're doing now is we're taking the business goals that we set and the strategies that we set, and we're carrying it over to here. And the idea is this: we bring our annual goal over. What are we going to do this year? Then we say, okay, oops, sorry about that. Then we say, okay, that's what I need to get done by the end of the year. What do I have to do this month? Then we go down to the bottom, down here, and we say, what do I have to do this week? So if we're looking at, let's use listing appointments as an example. I'm going to say we have to go on, I don't know, we have to go on 5 listing appointments a week. I'm just making up a number. So when you get down to the week, you're going to attend 5 listing appointments in your week, right? That's a thing you have to do, an activity you have to complete in order to hit the goal. Now, go into the project side of things. Hire the buyer's agent. That's one of your business goals for the year. What am I doing this month? It might be going and taking career visioning. Because before I go and hire a person, I'm going to go learn how to properly attract the right person to the right role. How am I going to attract that person, make sure they're the right person for the right role, and then what am I going to do to make sure that I keep them, right? How am I going to train them, lead them, and motivate them, right? So maybe this month, as a path towards hiring that buyer's agent or that assistant, what I'm doing is taking career visioning.
Hi, Matt. Is it okay? Eric Thomas has a question for you.
Yeah, of course.
Hey, great. Matt, I appreciate you. I always wrestle with this as if I know the answer, yet I don't achieve the answer. How did you develop the discipline to GPS it, calendar, and then honor that calendar? How, that's a discipline that, like the mental work of writing it out sometimes, but then to actually adhere to it and stay with it. What can you share?
Yeah. So this is going to be my honest answer. One, give yourself some grace. Right? Like, I don't know that anybody does what they're supposed to do 100% of the time. Right now, that is not permission to do nothing. That is not permission to waste time creating a GPS or 411, hang it on a wall, and then revisit again next year and go, oh yeah, I was going to do some stuff, I forgot. Like, that's not what I mean. But we have to give ourselves some grace, right? We're not going to be perfect all the time. And anytime we develop a new habit, the reality is we're probably going to fall off the bike sometimes, right? And then we have to get back up and be like, oh yeah. So it's kind of like, I always use the analogy, for a lot of us, it's like going to the gym, right? Where we getting to the point where going to the gym is like brushing our teeth is a great place to be, because we're just in that rhythm. But for most of us, getting in that rhythm, if we ever get to that rhythm, involves a lot of stops and starts, right? Like, we start and we get on a good run and we fall off, but we recognize, oh, you know what? I'm off track again. And then we go back to it. That, I think, is sort of the process most of us have to go through to really get effective with this. Is the intent is to be on it. Keep it in front of us, make it a part of our life, and know that when you're off of it, you're going to start to recognize you're spending your time in places that aren't in alignment with the plan that you created. And this becomes the thing you go back to, like your true north. Go back to this and say, okay, what am I doing here? What do I need to do to restructure and get refocused? Here's a few things I can suggest, and there's no magic and everybody is different. There's a couple things. One, figure out how you're wired and how you motivate yourself. Some people respond to pleasure. Some people respond to pain. Figure out how you can create some fun games or triggers to motivate yourself to stay on track. Keep it in front of you. Like, if you take the time to do your GPS should be with you all the time. Like, I'm going to disappear under my, all right, this folder goes everywhere I go. Inside of it is the financial report for every business that I have. A paper calendar, believe it or not. And the only reason I have a paper calendar is when I plan, I like paper, and then I transfer it over to digital. But it's easier for me to look at a calendar that I can flip pages and see, what does my whole year look like? What does my whole quarter look like? And the other thing that's in it is my 411 and my GPS. Those are the only things that are allowed to go in this folder. It's a calendar for the entire year. It's the financial statements for all my businesses. It's my 411 and my GPS. It goes everywhere I go, and nothing else is allowed to go in there. So keeping it with me helps. The spaces you work, put it on your wall. Like, by the monitor. So when you're working, you're looking at it. It's in your face. It's a constant reminder that this is a plan you created that you said was important to you. And it'll kind of trigger you to ask yourself, am I actually doing what I'm supposed to be doing to honor this right now? The other thing that I think is helpful is sometimes we struggle with what's it to do and what's a to-do list and what's a success list. Like, I had somebody ask me once, well, I have a rental property that needs a new roof. So that was on his 411 to get the roof done. So then the question was, does that move you closer to your goals? And he's like, well, yeah, I mean, it protects my investment. I'm like, okay, that's fair. but does it actually move you closer to your goals? Right? Maybe not. Yet it's something that has to get done. A really good piece of advice that somebody gave me once, they said, carry your GPS on paper, or I'm sorry, your 411 on paper. The to-dos go on the back of it. Like, it's stuff that has to happen. Lots of stuff has to happen that doesn't move us closer to our goals. Lots of it, right? You might have to mow the lawn. You might have to do lots of stuff that has to happen, but it's not the stuff that moves us closer to our goal. That stuff goes on the back of the GPS. And the way they said it to me is, the front of your GPS is your success list. These are the things that are going to move you closer to your goals, your dreams, your aspirations, all of those things. All the other stuff, put it on the back. And the deal you make with yourself is, I don't get to flip the paper over until I do the stuff on the front. Right? So when I'm looking at my 411, if lead gen, right, is the thing on my 411, then I do my lead gen. And then maybe I have an interview for my buyer specialist. Well, those things happen first, and then I get to turn over my GPS and make sure I get the roof done and the lawn gets mowed. Does that make sense? The other thing too, Eric, is the only way this works, and again, it takes time. The only way it works is if you actually have a relationship with it, as weird as that sounds. Like, you have to keep it close to you and you have to revisit it constantly. Using it at a high level, once a week, you're sitting down with your 411 and you're setting up your week, right? So whether it's early in the morning, Sunday when you have coffee, end of the day after you put the kids down, end of business Friday, whatever day works for you, there's one day a week where you sit down, you pull out your GPS, you pull out your 411 before you go into the next week, and you look at it and you say, okay, next week, what are my focuses? What are my priorities for the week? And then that's the stuff that gets transferred to the calendar. If we go back to, I'm going to go backwards. If we go back to this, the GPS gives us the plan, the goal and the plan, right? Another thing Gary always says is the purpose of a goal is to inform the plan, right? We need the goal. The goal gives us the information to create a plan that makes sense. So the purpose of a goal is to inform the plan. So the GPS is our one-page business plan. Then we carry our commitments over to our 411, which is our accountability. Then it goes over to our schedule. And this is one of those, it's simple, not easy. In a perfect world, when we do this, our job becomes getting up and following our calendar. Like, that's it, which we all struggle with. We all do, myself included. And if we have actually taken the time to create a business plan that supports our goal, we've taken the time to carry those commitments over into a 411, we've taken the time to move those from the 411 into our calendar, then what that means is those activities in our calendar, as long as we do them every day, we follow, we remain committed to those activities, the result will happen. We don't have to think about the income anymore. We don't have to think about the units. We don't have to obsess over it. Of course, every now and then we check, right? We pay attention to the outcomes, but we don't have to focus on it anymore. What we have to focus on is, I took the time to set a goal, create a plan that supports it, carry that over into my 411, move that into my calendar, and now I know if I just get up and do all the activities I put in my calendar today, I've done my job. I can go home, feel good about it, get up the next day and do it again. Here's the other little tidbit I'd give around that. You have to have white space, right? One of the ways we screw up is we block all of our time. Monique's probably laughing because she's like, Matt, where's your white space again? Where's that?
Yeah.
We block all of our time, right? And then it becomes really hard to follow our schedule because it's exhausting, right? We've taken an 8, 10, 12-hour day and we've jammed it full. Number one, you don't have any time to think, process, breathe. And secondly, it becomes really hard to commit to that. Like, you have to give yourself white space, right? So that's where you have to know yourself a little bit and say, okay, well, if I'm going to lead generate, like, how am I going to manage my energy, right? And this is where we get really good at this. We start to look at it and say, what are the activities I enjoy the least? and what part of the week and what part of the day am I going to do them because they require the most effort from me, because they're the things I like the least or they're the hardest for me. So I'm going to want to do them when I have the most amount of energy, right? And then I'm going to plug in the things I really enjoy afterwards to help me boost back up, right? Like prospecting. I built my business as an agent prospecting because I started in an area where I knew nobody. So I didn't have friends, I didn't have family. I mean, I had them, just not there, right? So I had to prospect. And sometimes it got exhausting. You're calling expireds and sometimes you felt like, you know, I don't feel like doing this anymore. That's when I would call people I knew, past clients, Sphere, that kind of stuff, because they were happy to hear from me, right? So once I had past clients, I would break up the calls that started to kind of grind me down a little bit, even though I didn't mind doing them. After a while, it would make me a little tired. That's when I would call the people I knew who were happy to hear from me, get a little energy boost, and then go back to my expireds, right? So you can start to manage your energy around it. But the short answer would be keep it in front of you everywhere. Set a meeting with it once a week prior to going into your week. It shouldn't be Monday morning. If it's Monday morning, you're too late. Like at a minimum, it should be Sunday night, so that when you go to bed Sunday night and you wake up Monday morning, you have clarity about what you're doing next week. And then put it in your calendar. The other thing you can do is set up, again, whether you're more motivated by pain or reward. I am far more motivated by pain. I am not particularly motivated by rewards, but I am very motivated by pain. So figure out how you can set yourself up, right? So examples might be, I know I had a goal at one point in time. I told my kids when we accomplished the goal, I was going to take them to Disney. That's a lot of pressure. And you tell your two little kids and then said, I want you to ask me every day when I came home if I did this thing, because that's the thing I have to do every day in order to be able to take you to Disney. Deal? Deal. High-fived him. Got Mickey Mouse ears for him. And guess what they did every day when I came home? Dad, did you do X, Y, Z? Right? Because they want to go to Disney, right? So for me, that was pain. You would think it's the pleasure of taking my kids to Disney. I'd be lying if I said that was the truth. It was the pain of disappointing them that motivated me more than the joy of actually bringing them. But so, you know, there's things like that. Accountability, a coach is huge. Like all of those things can help you stick with it.
Matt, can I chime in real quick? Just working closely with you.
Sure.
Matt's really good at allowing other people to challenge him on if what he's asking to do moves more towards his goals than just off in some other realm. So he's really good at, like, and he actually requests that people challenge him on those types of things to make sure that it's sticking with what his GPS is.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, a good example of that, the first assistant that I hired, she received a bonus based on our production. And I had a board that was on the wall, a whiteboard right in front of her desk. So when she was sitting at the desk, she was looking at this board. And that's where I tracked our DCAs. So every day I wrote on the board our DCAs. That was dials, contacts, appointments. So every day I wrote that up. How many dials, how many contacts, how many appointments, and I put it on the board. It was a calendar, and I just put it in the date. And we had a deal. I said, look, here's the deal. Your job is to take all of the non-dollar productive, important yet non-dollar productive things off of my plate so I can go do the dollar productive things. I want to be super clear. If you ever catch me using that time to golf or fish or screw around in some other way, I expect you to call me out, because that's not fair to you and it's not fair to your family. Like, my job is to take that time that you buy me back to go do things that allow the business to make more money, which allows you to make more money, which allows you to do more for your family. If I am not doing that for you, you call me out. And then the board went right in front of her. And guess what? She would call me out, right? If I didn't go in, or I stopped in and made a handful of calls and was like, I'm not feeling it today, and bounced, I would get a phone call. And she would be like, Matt, what's the deal? Did you stop caring about my children today? And I'd be like, all right, I'm on some appointments. As soon as I'm done, I'll be back in the office. I'll make the calls. She'd be like, you better. I'm going to be looking at the board tomorrow. And I'd be like, I know you will. And I'd go back and do the work. So again, for me, it was the pain of letting her down that motivated me. So just think about how you can set your world up that way. You know, who's the accountability partner? What's the reward you can give yourself, or the risk that you can insert that if you don't do it, there's an outcome that you're not excited about. Like, think about how you can set yourself up. And then the other thing is share it. Like, most of us will let ourselves down before we'll let somebody else down, right? So if we can tie somebody else to the outcome of our activities, it tends to motivate us even more, because it's one thing to let myself down, it's a whole nother thing to let somebody else down. Okay. All right. Let's see. All right. I'm going to do this quick. There's one thing I want to show you quickly, then we're going to move on. See if I can find it. All right. So are you guys looking at a 411? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So a little bit of transparency. I did delete one thing. This is the top part of my 411. So to kind of show you how it can flow. And you'll notice I added a second category. So for me, it's personal, or it's professional, personal, and finance. I like to keep finance and professional as two different buckets. So on the professional side, these are my annual most important activities to do. So one is 352 hours of developing, training, consulting, and coaching others. And why is that one of my biggest priorities? The reason is it serves every single thing that I do. I'm either training, consulting with agents in my office to help them grow their business, or I'm doing it with recruits to create a relationship and add value so that we can become business partners together, or I'm doing it with people outside of my own business world, which allows me to attract other people into my business world, right? All of it is about creating relationships and adding value to other people. So 352 hours, what that means is every single week, I have to spend 8 hours training or consulting other people. Hire force multipliers. Jeez, that was tough to say. And I have little notes. So if I hover over that, it will tell me the specifics of that. So what that means is 4 force multipliers is that at the beginning of the year when I did this, there were 4 people missing in my life. One of them is actually in the top left-hand corner of my screen right now, which is Monique, right? So there were 4 people that I needed to hire in order for me to continue doing the things that I wanted to do and be able to do it at the level I wanted to do them. Monique was one of those hires. So one of those goals was to make those 4 hires throughout the year, and I have notes behind it. 46 mega agent or independent broker meetings. So that's me meeting with mega agents with large businesses to consult, add value, create relationships so that we can become business partners. Then it trickles down to the activities that I'm going to do that month in order to support those. On the personal side, it's 12 date nights with my wife and 8 date nights apiece with my 2 daughters. Home for dinner, 260 out of 365 days a year, right? So the deal is I don't get to miss dinner because I got busy or decided to waste time. If I'm not going to be home to have dinner with my family, it's because we planned it. There's an event, I'm traveling, there was an appointment that was booked ahead of time, whatever the case may be. But what I don't get to do is not be efficient with my day, waste a bunch of time, and end up not being home for dinner. That's a problem, right? So that's a commitment. By the way, going back to Monique, Monique, my team leader, Amina, like there's accountability around that. When I go to book something and Monique says, yeah, how's Dee gonna feel about that, Matt? Like, no way you're getting home for dinner if you do that. Like, she has to call me out because sometimes I do it and she has to bring me back. 2 family vacations, 2 friend vacations, and build a home gym. You go down, I've got what I need to do this month in order to support that. On the business side, I deleted this because I'm candidly not comfortable sharing it, but that's my income goal for the year that was right there. I just deleted it when I brought it up. Reduce business debt, purchase 2 investment properties. And this is a number that I would encourage you all to track. To achieve 55% passive income to personal expense ratio. So one of the things I track every year is what do I spend personally and how much of that is covered by passive income. Passive income meaning it's not a trade of time for money. Whether I went to work or not, that money would show up, right? The goal I'm moving towards is 100%. I want 100% of my personal expenses to be covered by things that don't involve my time. So that's a number that I track. I keep track of how much passive income I have, what my personal expenses are, and I keep trying to move that number forward. This also makes you think about things differently. If I'm going to add personal expenses, I know it's actually going to bring that number back down. Right? So if I'm going to buy something, I don't know, take on some monthly expense that is not necessary, in my head, I'm going, when I do that, like I'm at 55%, that was the goal. When I do that, I'm going to go back down to 50%. Am I okay with that? Right? So it makes me pass everything through that filter. It keeps me in tune to, am I creating passive income streams? And it also keeps me in tune to my personal expenses. Okay. So that's kind of an example of that's the top of my 411. And again, I do find it helpful to add the finance piece to it. The link that we put in the chat box has the Excel sheet, and you can just add finance to it if you choose to. All right, let's get back to the slides. So before we leave all that, the last thing is obviously it's GPS. GPS flows to 411. And the last thing we do is the daily commitments go into our calendar. Then each week we decide which projects are coming out of that into our calendar for that week. And the goal is at that point, our job is to follow our calendar. We revisit it once a week before we go into the next week, make whatever changes we need to for the week we're going into, and we just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Okay, any questions before we move on from the GPS and the 411?
The only question that came in the chat box was, do you have a recommendation on how much white space you should leave on your calendar?
I think it's different for everybody. I mean, I'll give you a couple of, are you guys seeing the slide again?
No.
Sure. Are you now?
Yes.
Okay. Here's a couple things, couple tips. One, I think it's helpful to block time to work on the business, not in the business. So when I was actively selling, I always had a half a day every week that was blocked. Clients knew I wasn't available. Everybody knew I wasn't available. That was Wednesday. Wednesday after 12 o'clock, I was not accessible. That was my block time to work on the business, not in the business. Okay, so all this stuff that isn't transactional, that isn't dealing with a client directly, that isn't lead gen, it's important, yet not as urgent as that other stuff. That's when it got done, on that block of time on Wednesdays. Saturdays was my time off. I didn't work on Saturdays. So that was my downtime to do whatever. Right now, and this is where I'm bad. White space is where I struggle. Theoretically, I should have white space every Friday. And it's 3 hours of white space is what I always intend to have. And I will tell you at this point right now, I am violating that on a regular basis.
Yeah, I give him an F.
Yes, yes. And I'll tell you what that leads to. For me, that leads to my white space having to be on the weekends, which is okay if you're okay with that. It just means my thinking time, my working on the business time, It ends up having to be early in the morning before the house wakes up. I get up, I do that work, and then when the house wakes up, I close whatever it is I'm doing and I hang with the family. Throughout the day, at a minimum, the beginning of your day should be all the 411 stuff. And at a minimum, you should have an hour in between 411 stuff. At the end of that, you're probably eating lunch. And then you should probably, whenever possible, have at least, I would say, 30 to 45 minutes of downtime before you kick into the second half of the day, which should be going out on appointments. Just give yourself, and everyone's different. Some people would rather get really tiny breaks often. Maybe every 45 minutes, they take 10 minutes and then they get back at it. You just got to kind of manage your energy. All right, any other questions, Monique?
No, that's it.
Okay. Thumbs up, head nods. I know it's a lot and it's not like the stuff we necessarily, all of us love to lean into, but was it helpful to go through all that in that level of depth? Yeah. Okay, good. All right. So we talked about setting the business goals, know the activities we have to do, set your business budget. So we're going to move into budgets and we're going to start to move quick because I really believe that's the stuff we just focused on, I believe is the most foundational. Having the plan, knowing what we need to do, what our priorities are, and sticking to it is where our success comes from. So I really wanted to give it the time I believe it deserves. So we're going to move a little quickly on this stuff to make sure that we don't go over. So let's talk about budget. Number one, in order to operate a business effectively, you need two things. You need to know what you are spending. You need to know what you are doing and what you should be doing, right? Those are the two benchmarks you need. One is like the windshield and one is the rear view, okay? That means we need a budget and we need a P&L. The budget tells us what we should be doing, and we are blessed that at Keller Williams, they give us a budget. So we know what we should be spending based on different levels of production. That's our guardrails. That's what we should be doing. Then we need a P&L so we can see what we actually are doing. Here's what I'm going to say about a P&L. Most of us, number one, don't have one. I can tell you I have probably asked 10,000 realtors in the last 5 years the same line of questions. One, what does KW teach us is the purpose of business? It's to fund a perfect life. Awesome. In order to do that, a business has to be what? They always say profitable. I say, great. Based on those two answers, quick question. How many of you have a budget and a profit and loss statement that you look at least once a month? If I ask that question in a room of 100, everybody knows the answers to the first two questions. And typically in a room of 100, about 3 people. It's 3 to 5 people on average. Mind blowing. Yes. The rest are operating a business blindly. Very, very dangerous. So we need a budget and we need a profit and loss statement. And we have to look at them on a regular basis. A couple little nuggets. Gary Keller once said some of the best advice he ever got was open up your bank account and stare at it for 15 minutes a day. Like, it's really weird advice. It goes back to our last session. It was just about creating awareness. You have to pay attention to the things that matter. The same is true in your business. Your best case scenario is on a weekly basis, you should be glancing at a P&L. Just at least glancing at it so you have an idea what money has gone out, what money has come in. At a bare minimum, once a month, you're looking at your budget or your profit and loss and you're comparing it to your budget at a bare minimum. What I try to get people to do is put a Financial Friday in your calendar. 15 minutes early in the morning while you're drinking a coffee before the day takes off, you take a quick peek at the financials, what money's come in, what money's gone out, so you can continue to have awareness around it. The important thing to know is when you have a highly functioning P&L, it actually helps you make more money. It's not about filing taxes. You will earn more income, period, end of story, when you have a P&L and you start to pay attention to it and learn it. It's not a scorecard, right? Like the mentality we often have is it's not going to change anything. No, the reality is when you have it and use it, it will change things, okay? As we've gone through, we've kind of gone tactic tool. So we shared mint.com on the personal side. So a couple of resources. One, if you go to page 157 of the MREA, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, there is a budget model. So you can see a budget model for your different levels of production. What should you be spending? in different categories at different levels of productions. Again, that's your guardrails, okay? I'm gonna share with you another solution. Full disclosure, this software platform I developed with one of my top agents, and here's the reason why we developed it. I started teaching this class probably 8 years ago, and the way I try to teach it is tactic tool, tactic tool, tactic tool. And the one place that I got to where there wasn't a simple solution was when we got to talking about profit and loss and budgets, it got complicated, right? It's QuickBooks. Most of us aren't wired for QuickBooks. Use an Excel spreadsheet. None of us are punching all those numbers in, right? There might be 2 of us on the call who are actually going to sit and do that. So it was hard to find a simple solution, so we built it. So that solution is RE Profit. I'm just going to show you what it does really quick. And if you guys want to, you have an opportunity to try it if you want to try it. So basically, RE Profit is mint.com for your business. Connects to the bank accounts and credit cards, pulls all your transactions into the system, and then it automatically categorizes them into an MREA chart of accounts, right? So where it pulls the transactions in, it looks like online banking. It's going to recognize many of the transactions when they come in because it's only built for real estate. So it's programmed that way. It's going to categorize them. Ones that are not categorized automatically, you can categorize it in 2 clicks and click a button to apply all. And every time that transaction happens, it's automatically going to get categorized. So usually after about 30 to 60 days of using the system, it's going to be like 80 to 85% automated. Everything's going to come in and just automatically go into the P&L and get categorized correctly. I'm just going to show you the high points. It brings you into, puts it all into a profit and loss statement that allows you to select your level of production. When you select your production, it's going to create a budget based on the MREA budget models for you. Right? This is the summary at the top of the profit and loss statement in the system. It shows you your actual, your budget, and your variance based on the model. For whatever period you select, you can look at year to date, a quarter, you can select custom date ranges, last month, whatever you want to look at, it stores the data. But it's giving you a budget for that time period, what your actual is, what the variance is, and then it gives you the same thing for the year at the summary. The other thing that's really important, because this is where we tend to get ourselves in trouble, is down here, it's going to tell you what your net profit is. It's going to calculate your estimated tax liability based on the tax bracket that you put in. It's going to track your owner draws, meaning the money you've already taken out of the business for personal use. And it's going to tell you if you have outspent your after-tax income. Number one problem that self-employed people get into is they spend money that isn't there. Tax time rolls around and they don't have the money to pay the taxes, right? And that can be a really stressful and painful experience to have to go through. So what this does is it keeps it in front of you. Right? It is actually possible to have money in the bank, have a profit and loss that says you're profitable and you're actually in the hole. Reason being taxes, right? Profit and loss says you're making money. You've got $15,000, $20,000, $50,000 in the bank. However, you owe $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 of taxes. You're actually in the hole. So this is going to keep it in front of you if you've already pulled too much money out of the business to cover taxes after expenses, okay? This is the chart of accounts, same thing, gives you your actual, your budgets and your variances, and everything is Fisher Price simple. If you're doing it yourself, you can click on any of these categories, it opens up into subcategories, you click on a subcategory and it opens up to a transaction level. The other things it does is it tracks cost of sale and GCI, and then it tracks ROI on marketing and lead gen. Here's the important things. Whatever tool you use, you've got to be tracking the metrics that matter for our business, which include cost of sale. And it includes, somehow you need to be tracking ROI on your marketing and lead generation, right? So the reason we built this in is this gives you a report that shows you for every dollar you spent that should be making you money, how much you've actually earned. So I spent $1 and I got back $500. It's going to show you for every dollar that should be generating income, what did you spend, what did you make, and what's your ROI on it. The value of that is you can start to move things around. When you see that I'm investing here and I'm investing here, I'm getting a 900% return here and a 20% return here. Now I know to move that investment. That becomes more leads, more clients, more closings, more income, right? So you've got to track those key metrics. So this is just a simple way to do it. You also have a mobile app, which allows you to do all of those things as well within the mobile app. So I'm not going to go into all the details, but everything you can do on the platform, you can also do mobilely. You can categorize transactions, look at ROI, all of those things. And again, most of this is going to be automated for you. Get to the end of this. So here's the opportunity you have if you want to do it. And I am not selling you guys. What I am telling you is if you don't have a solution, you need to get a solution. This is a simple, inexpensive solution. One way or another, you need a solution. If you don't have a P&L, you don't have a business, right? So you have to have it in order to run a business like a business. If you do want to try RE Profit, Monique is going to put the onboarding link into the chat box. What we're doing for you guys is you're going to get a one-on-one personal onboarding. So one of our onboarding specialists will actually get you set up in the system, connect your bank accounts, give you a tutorial, the whole nine. We will actually upload the data back to January 1 for you. So one of the challenges of jumping in late in the year is you don't get a full set of books. We can actually go back and recapture that data for you so you have a full set of books for the year. So we'll do that for you. We're actually offering you guys, and we've never done this. This isn't like and then what's next? We're offering Profit Assist through the end of the year. So Profit Assist is one of those onboarding specialists is actually going to stay with you for the first 90 days. They're actually going to do any manual work in your account. They're going to meet with you for 15 minutes once a week to go through it with you, answer questions, make sure the system is completely up to date, functioning correctly, answer questions. Like they're there to help you for the first 90 days. Literally, if you never touch the system during those 90 days, it'll be accurate because they're doing it for you. So the idea is they'll get it up and running in those first 90 days, take care of everything. You'll have a clean set of books at the end of the year. The cost to do all of that is $199. After that, the regular pricing, you have choices. You can sign up monthly, it's $39 a month. An annual subscription is $350. If you want to keep a Profit Assist, which is essentially you get the platform and a bookkeeper who's doing it for you, it's $795 for the whole year. And they continue to do the same thing. They keep it updated. Once a week, you have a 15-minute call. They run through the numbers with you, answer any questions, and they just maintain all of it for you. Okay. Real quick. Yes.
Real quick, just one question. Can you use RE Profit for multiple businesses or just one?
So I always get that question. And here's the answer. No. Predominantly not because you can't. There's two things. Would it work? Sure. It's designed specifically for a real estate sales business. So the intention is not to just do bookkeeping. We designed this to give people the information they need to actually run their business financially at a high level, right? So we looked at it and said, not only what do we need to file taxes, but what are the metrics people need to know in order to run their business at a high level throughout the year. So things like the budgets, if you plug another business into it, it'll track the expenses, but the budgets are all going to be irrelevant because they're based on real estate. So you lose one of those two metrics. What am I supposed to be doing? The other thing is it's going to mess up all your numbers. You should never take two businesses and put them into, they should never commingle, right? So honestly, even if you have rental properties, I get that question a lot. Can you put it there? Yes, you can. Would I encourage you to do it? No, I would not. I would strongly encourage to keep this your sales business and nothing else so that you can actually see the metrics of your business. Anything else, Monique?
Just somebody wanted to know what the $199 was for.
So the $199 covers access to the platform for the rest of the year, the one-on-one onboarding, the Profit Assist for the rest of the year. So having that Profit Assist that's going to work with you for the next 3 months. So it's the platform, the onboarding, the Profit Assist, and then you get access to all of the RE Profit training and all the RE Profit masterminds.
Okay, that's it.
Anything else? Cool. All right, so we're going to do two things quickly, and then I see that we have a guest. So then I'm going to pull the guest up here.
Oh, hold on. Sorry. Just two people have asked if the company, the COS line items could be customized. Or company.
Do you mean the budget, the cost of sale on the budget?
If someone who asked the question wants to chime in with that.
Let me answer the question at a broad level and then unmute yourself if I don't answer it. You cannot customize the budgets. We actually talked about that a lot when we developed it, and what we decided was if we give everyone the key to the castle, they're going to unlock it. Right. So the idea was we operate at KW based on proven models. Gary has given us proven budget models. That's what the system runs on right now. Right. So it's, you're doing this. This is what the model says you should be doing. If you're choosing to do something different, we at least want you to be aware of the fact that you're choosing to veer off that path. If we give people the ability to create custom, we're immediately going to rip it apart, tear it apart, and now we've lost the guardrails. So you cannot customize the budgets.
Thanks, that answers my question.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Here's the last two things we're going to cover quickly, and then we're going to pull in a guest because I think he's got a great story to share with you guys. We went over the bank accounts on the personal level last time. Everybody remember that? Okay. Exact same concept, right? We don't have to reteach the whole thing. I'm going to encourage you to do the exact same thing, right? So in the business, we have to protect them. Just like on the personal level, we have to protect our money from our own bad habits. We also have to protect our money from our business's bad habits, right? So the method I'm going to encourage you to deploy in your business is literally identical to what we did on the personal side, right? So real quick, actually, I don't even have to redraw. Remember this drawing? We had a capital account and an operating account. It's the exact same thing. So for our business accounts, we want an operating account and we want a capital account. When we receive money, commissions, it goes into the capital account. We establish our budget for the business, right? Just like we did at home. And every month we move the money out of the capital account, which is basically our business savings account, right? This is where all the money goes. Once a month, we move the money for our budget over into this account, and that's where we pay our bills. That, by the way, should include you, right? Where we want to get to, and by the way, I get it. Like, it's a process to get there. Where we want to get to is where commissions, we're treating revenue like what it is, which is revenue, which means when it comes in, we don't immediately behave like it's ours and we take it out of the business and we run away with it. What we do is we decide what we're going to pay ourselves. I've already established a budget for myself. I know how much income I need to service that budget and any other additional investments or whatever savings or whatever the case may be. What are you going to pay yourself a month? Is it 6,000, 8,000, 10,000, 15,000, whatever the number is? That should be part of your budget. So you have your operating budget. You have, that includes what you're paying yourself. And then all your cash goes in here. End of the month, you transfer the money to cover all of your expenses, including paying yourself. Now you operate out of that account just like we do personally. It has the exact same effect. If we're going to choose to spend money in the business that we didn't plan on spending in the budget, what do we have to do? We got to go back to this account to get money to move it over. It creates the pattern interrupt that helps develop the discipline of actually following the plan, right? It goes back to Eric's question. Like, how do you develop the habit? This is about developing that financial habit. I've got the budget. How do I follow it? Easiest way is don't allow any other money to be accessible. Make sense? Yeah? Okay. And then the last bullet that we had on here, and by the way, when we talk about paying ourselves, if whatever salary we set, we as business owners can bonus ourselves anytime we want. Right? So just because we're paying ourselves $6, $7, $8, $9, $10,000 a month, like every other business operates, by the way, that's how normal businesses work. We don't take all the revenue and run away with it. We set a salary for ourselves and that's what we take. You can bonus yourself quarterly if you choose to when you've earned that. right? When you've had the sales and done the work and controlled the expenses, the revenue's there, you can bonus yourself quarterly. You still have access to it. The point is creating habits where, number one, you're going to live on the money that you need to support yourself personally, cover the budget, and you're going to allow the business to build up capital, just like you're allowing your personal accounts to build up capital. And we go back to delayed gratification. As you're paying yourself X amount of money, you're forcing yourself to be more responsible, because now you're forcing yourself to live on that money rather than however much money I happen to make that month. And it builds that muscle of delayed gratification that later, when I go out and do choose to bonus myself, I'm likely only going to do it if there's something really worthwhile. Like, I'm going to take that money and do something smart with it. Like, I've broken the habit of just spending every dollar I can get my hands on. I've gotten myself used to having distance between me and available capital. Okay. And the only other account that we have to add, and you can call this a personal or a business account, is your tax reserve account, right? So what should happen is revenue comes in to your capital account, and you say, it costs me $6,000 a month to run my business. If $6,000, let's say 6,000 came into your capital account, and you're putting 30% away for taxes, and $900 goes into your tax reserve account. That means we've added 5,200 to the total that was already here. Then, end of the month, we transfer over the $6,000. So the money is always leaving the capital account into the tax account and then into our operating account. Okay, exact same concept that we talked about on the personal side. The only addition is the tax account. Okay. Any questions before we bring in the guest? Monique?
Question.
Yeah.
Oh.
Go ahead.
This is Nidra. With the RE profit, when you say that line after it's the net profit, the estimated tax, the owner draw, and then the available capital.
Yes.
Where is the available capital coming from?
Yeah, so let me explain what that is. So number one, for anyone who doesn't realize what it means, owner draw, when you own a business, anytime you take cash out of it for personal use, that is an owner draw. Okay, so if you are commingling your accounts, which means you pay your business expenses and your personal expenses out of the same account, and all your money goes into that account, we talked about, we need to stop that. And if that's what we're doing, every single time you spend money personally, that's an owner draw. Right? If you're running your business with separate accounts, every time you pay yourself, that's an owner draw. An owner draw is every time you take money out of a business for personal use, it's an owner draw. By the way, when you pay taxes, that's an owner draw. Businesses, LLCs don't pay taxes. Sole proprietors don't pay taxes. The business itself, the owner of the business pays the tax. So if I have to go to my business and take 50 grand out to pay the tax, that's an owner draw. I'm taking it out for personal use. That personal use is paying the personal taxes I have to pay that were caused by the income from the business. When I pay myself salary, that's an owner draw. When I bonus myself, that's an owner draw. I'm co-mingling, I go to Petco and I buy an $80 bag of dog food. That is an owner draw, right? So anytime you take money out. So when you look at that line, what that is your net profit is the first box. The second box is based on that net profit and my tax bracket, what do I currently owe in taxes? The third box is how much money have I taken out of the business already? Okay. The fourth box, which is that available capital, that is the sum of those three. My net profit was this. I have to subtract what I owe in taxes. Then I subtract what I've already spent out of the business. What's left over is what we're calling available capital. Okay, so if that number is in brackets, what it means is I've actually spent more than my after-tax income. Maybe I made 100,000 and I spent 90, but I also owe 30,000 in taxes. I'm in the hole 20 grand. You're going to see brackets that say $20,000. Because even though I have cash and I'm profitable, I actually spent cash that wasn't mine. It belonged to Uncle Sam. Did that answer the question?
Yes. Yes, it did.
Awesome. Cool. All right, any other questions before I bring up our esteemed colleague and guest?
Yeah, there's one question that came in. Does this affect or lower self-employment tax? And it was before that question was asked.
So that's actually a great question. That is a strategy. So for those, a lot of people don't even realize, if you own a business, if you have a job, you pay taxes, your employer pays the other half. So there's actually, you're paying 7.5% in taxes, your employer is paying 7.5%. The blessing we have as business owners, we are both the employee and the employer. So what that means is we pay both 7.5%, which equals 15%. That's the self-employment tax. I believe where the question is coming from, how you pay yourself, as far as how you move the money, has no impact on that. However, if you have an LLC, you can choose to file as an S Corp, which, just talk to your accountant about that. It's really strange. It's a piece of paper that you sign that saves you money. I don't understand it. But if you set up an LLC, you can choose to file taxes as an S Corp. And when you do that and pay yourself a reasonable salary, like we're talking about here, you will save half of the self-employment tax by filing as an S Corp. And I believe you save that 7.5% up to, I think it's the first $120,000 of income, I believe is what it is. After that, it caps out. But if you do the math on that, that's like, $8-9 grand a year that you can save, literally by sending a piece of paper to the IRS. But that's only if you're an LLC and you elect to file as an S Corp. Okay, I think we're going to go a little bit over, possibly. Any other questions?
Nope, that's it.
No. Okay.
One quick question, Matt.
Yep.
Lewis from Rhode Island.
How are you, sir?
So to kind of go back to the 5-year plan thing.
Okay.
Now, is there a certain percentage you should reach for every year, as in like a growth? Like, for example, just for like simple purposes, let's say you wanted to make $500,000 a year in 5 years. Would you, and let's say your first year you did 100,000, is there a certain percentage of growth that you should be hitting each year in order to get to that 500? Like, is 30% growth realistic, or 50% growth? Is there like a rule of thumb you should be aiming for?
So I'll give you as good of an answer as I can. One, the earlier you are in the business, the bigger the gains can be. In other words, going from running a sales business that makes 50,000 to 100,000 in a year is far easier to do than going from $1 million to $2 million, if that makes sense. So the gains you can make when the business, and I don't mean to use the word smaller, but when the business is in the early stage and there's less income, revenue, and profit, making massive leaps percentage-wise is easier to do. So I would argue you can double, triple, quadruple. I don't know the word for anything beyond that. Whatever, 6 times, 10 times. I mean, you can have massive growth. The question is just, do you have a real plan to do it and a commitment to do the activities? So when you look at big businesses, to have a 20-30% increase is massive in a big business. That is a significant leap forward. Large businesses that are gaining 5-10% annually is a really, really healthy growth. In our business, we have the opportunity to have pretty massive leaps. So I would say in the early days, I mean, I've absolutely seen people go from 0 to 6 million. I've seen people go from 6 to 12, so that is more a function of your commitment, really. As you get further down the road and the business is bigger, and we're about to talk to somebody who can answer a question like that as well from another perspective, because he has a massive business right now. You get to a certain size, those leaps become a little bit harder. However, if you're talking about a 20% increase or a 30% increase, you're talking about 20 or 30% of a very large thing, right? So the gain is still massive. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Matt.
Absolutely.
I have a question, Matt.
Yep.
Real quick. I was told you have to be a broker to be able to do the LLC and file as an S Corp. Is that true?
That is a Connecticut thing. So check your state laws. Yeah, so in Connecticut, you have to have a broker's license in order to run your sales business through an LLC.
Okay.
That is different state to state.
That's true in Massachusetts as well, Matt.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to bring Matt Miali up. So here's why I wanted you guys to talk to Mally. Everything that we are talking about is about personal financial management, health and wealth, business, financial management, health and wealth, right? How do we set our business up to be able to fund the life that we want to live? What kind of habits do we have to have around our finances, our activities, all of those things, right? We've talked about a lot of the bad habits that we tend to carry with us, where they get us, right? And kind of the path towards creating new habits in our life. So for anyone who doesn't know Matt Miali is one of the largest agents from a production standpoint, not a body size, from a production standpoint in our entire region. He's one of the top agents in Keller Williams Realty. He's the #1 agent in Connecticut. He runs a massive, massive business. He also happens to be one of the greatest people I know. He's just a down-to-earth, super cool guy. But he also has a story that he's willing to be really transparent and share that kind of shows both sides of what we're talking about. What it looks like when we're running our business kind of on the fly, and what it looks like when we slow down and we get those systems in place and we work on those habits, because he's experienced both sides of it. And he's gracious enough to share that story. So I wanted to bring Matt into the loop. And it was Matt and I who partnered together to create RE Profit because of our experiences. Our experiences, either as ourselves or with the agents that we worked with and led, seeing the challenges they were having around financial habits and the gap between the ones that were really learning and growing in that area and the ones that weren't, and how it showed up in their world. It became a passion for the two of us, and that's what led us to partner together on that. So I wanted to bring Matt in, tell his story. We're going to go over here. So anybody who has to jump. But in the meantime, you've got a ton of experience who's about to get on the screen. So, I would encourage you to make the most of it.
Matt,
So
really
Matt,
quick.
yours,
Wait.
if you can give Matt
Matt.
the big screen, I'll stop.
Yeah.
sharing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you stop sharing, please? I'll highlight him.
You have to stop. There you go, buddy.
Yep.
What's happening? Thanks for that intro, man. Very, very gracious of you to say I'm a cool guy. That's awesome. I knew all that stuff about the business. I wasn't so sure where I landed as far as my cool factor, but so yeah, I mean it's an interesting road, and I guess the key part of the story, right, as it pertains to what you guys have been talking about, is really how do you go from living, kind of what we experience as paycheck to paycheck or moment to moment, to getting really into the intention of having a big business. And it's not easy. It's definitely something that you have to get, you have to be very, very intentional about. And so what I picked up while I was listening to Matt talk, and something that I've sort of landed on, which I would encourage everybody here to realize, is that all of this starts with mindset. Every single bit of it starts with your thinking. You've got to really decide early on that how you think is going to dictate how your outcomes show up. And so, for me, when I got in this business in 2007, I really was just thinking about getting a paycheck. Really I wasn't thinking about building a big business. And so fundamentally, I don't think that the big business didn't show up right away. I just was trying to find a way to earn a living. And I came out of an advertising sales business. And so I was very W-2 mindset, right? Like it was a job, and I didn't really have the business owner mentality. What I did have was a skill set around people. So I was able to go out and meet lots of people and get enough people to say, yeah, this guy seems cool enough. I guess I'll work with him to buy or sell or invest in real estate. Of course, keep in mind, right, this is 2008. You guys remember, how many of you guys were in business in 2008? Hands up, right? So what was amazing, what was absolutely amazing, I mean, I thought I was the most brilliant guy on the face of the earth, was how many listings I got in 2008, which, like, if you remember 2008, right, today listings are gold, but back then, man, you couldn't give them away. Like they was the worst thing you ever wanted, because they were all upside down. And of course I got all the best ones, the $60,000, trailers, the ones that had one, 3/4 of the house was sided, half of a roof done, windows missing, all that. I got all the best listings. So I was a really great listing agent. But I just had initially I started to just frame my head around, how do I just get up every day, go to work, go get something done, go get a listing every single day. And so I had this mantra, which was, it started with this thinking that if I sell something, sign something, or set an appointment every day, it's a good day, right? So sell something, sign something, or set an appointment. Like, I say that to my team every morning, like, hey, today's a good day to sell something, sign something, or set an appointment. Because if you do that, everything's going to start moving forward. With that sort of blinders on and that kind of focus, within a relatively short amount of time in the business from 2008 to 2010, and we were a small market center back then. Matt, when did you come into Greater Hartford? 2010, 11, 7?
08.
08. So right around the same time, right? So, but by 2010, I was the #1 solo agent in the office. And this amazing thing was happening. Like, I started having closings on a pretty regular basis. And about a year later, I had an assistant, I had a buyer's agent, and I was like literally following this book, like everything in the book. I was listening to and following everything it said. I was waking up, I was lead genning every morning. I was making the phone calls. I was, hiring the right people. I was taking all the classes. The one thing I wasn't doing was page 157. I wasn't doing that, which was that budget model. And in 2011, I was the #1 agent in the office. I think we sold like 60 houses. And I got my 1099 at the end in January of 2012. And it said that I had made $330,000, which, I mean, shit, that seemed like more money than I could ever possibly make. What was crazy though, was that I was totally broke. Like, I had all that money had come in to my bank account, but none of it stayed there because I had this whirlwind of like a financial tornado that had just built up behind me through years and years of not focusing and not paying attention to it and not having good habits around it. So if you remember what I said when I started, it started with a focus around habits of production. And I was really, really good at that, right? Most of you guys are really good in the habits of production, but I didn't have habits around my finances. I had no habits around it. And it wasn't like I was taking limousines and helicopters to listing appointments. Like, I can't even tell. I had like rental properties that were losing money, half empty. The money wasn't a thing that I looked at or paid any attention to. And so at the end of the day, all I knew how to do was continue to go out and sell more. And that was really painful existence. And unfortunately, I think one of the things that we've experienced, and Matt and I, as we've focused on this over the past couple of years, have learned is that until there's like a radical wake-up call, most of us are able to kind of just get by long enough without actually ever having to get super serious about our financials, right? So some of the questions you guys were asking were awesome. And some of you guys have heard my story before because I've been around New England and talking about it. And even though you've heard it before, maybe nothing's changed, right? Because we still are leaning into the production mindset instead of the accountability mindset around our money. And so this presentation that Matt does is awesome. I've seen him do it many, many times, but it really does start with your thinking. And the first thing, if you want to make more money, which I think everybody here will say they want to make more money next year, like probably very, very small percentage are going to say, in 2021, I really hope I make a little less money than I did in 2020. Everybody wants to make more money. The thing that's incredible that most of you don't realize is that you literally don't have to do any more work to make more money. Like, you don't have to sell one single more house next year to make more money. The first most important thing you can do is change your relationship with money. And as soon as you change your relationship with it, which means that you're going to be in charge of it instead of at its mercy, you're going to start making more money. And Matt was talking about the tools like a profit and loss statement, a balance sheet. Those are the things that showed up in my life that literally changed how I looked at business. My relationship with business was not one that I didn't expect to have the business that I have today. It just was one thing. It started with, I'm going to make a paycheck. Then it started with, I'd like to make more money. Then it started with, I'm making more money, but I'm still broke. And then it started asking questions like, what the hell is wrong with me? Like, how is it possible that $330,000 is on my 1099 and I don't have any of it. I literally can't pay my mortgage. By the way, Matt talked a little bit about taxes. Yeah, that's a thing. If you make $330,000, you got to write a check to the IRS, and they want it on April 15th. Whether you sold the houses or not, they still want it. And so, I guess the message that I like to convey to people is if you get really clear about what your outcomes are, especially through your finances, you can change it. So let me fast forward to 2020. This year, we will sell about $2.6 million in gross commission income. Our profit margins inside of our business, we actually calculate this every Monday, which gives you a picture of the kind of habits we have around our profit and loss statement. Every single Monday morning at 7 a.m., I review our profit and loss statement. Not once every 4 months, not at the end of the year. Every Monday, I look at it and I look at how it changed from the week prior to the week that we're in. And we're currently operating at a 24.6% total owner compensation out of the business. Now, I do a lot of the things that Matt talked about. I've got an S Corp. I've got income that comes in. We fund our 401ks. We've got health insurance for our employees. So total owner compensation comes out for me at 24.6% of $2.6 million from a business where I was flat broke less than 10 years ago.
Yeah, and the one thing I want to jump into, because we talked about the budget models, the 30-30-40 budget models. One of the things I think it's important to highlight. Number one, the MREA 2 is going to be coming out. You're going to have a better lens into what it looks like when a business gets to the size of Matt's. Because the reality is, at the size Matt is running a business, it's not a 30-30-40 anymore. That profit margin he's talking about is super healthy. Because as it gets that big, your margin actually gets smaller. However, it's a smaller piece of a much bigger pie. So I just wanted to make sure I pointed that out.
Yeah, it's fascinating too, because what you realize is that like when I was upside down in my business, which it really didn't feel like it just was a lack of attention is really all it was. Which again, I've like you, Matt, I've presented, and talked to probably, thousands of real estate agents about how to get control of their finances inside of the business. And the reality is most agents, there's no lack of income, right? There's plenty of income to produce a great life and to build. There's just a lack of attention. Just people are not looking at it. And the reason they're not looking at it, most of us, and I don't mean to paint a broad brush, but the reason is because it sucks. Like, it's really hard. Nobody likes to do it. Like, I don't like to do the process of producing the profit and loss statement. That's terrible, which is why we built a tool that does it for us. That is awful. Like, the last thing you want to do is put me in a room and ask me to start tabulating numbers and looking at receipts. Like, talk about like not my highest and best use. I want to stab my eyes out with ice picks. But if you give me the information that I need so that I can make decisions, man, did it change my life. But I needed somebody to put it in front of me, and then I could ask the questions. And the first time I looked at a profit and loss statement, I tell this story all the time. I wanted to puke. And some of you are going to relate to this. I questioned its validity because I looked at it and I was like, there's no way that's accurate. I can't possibly be losing that much money. I just made $20,000 in a commission check. Where's that money? Well, here's the thing. Like, I was looking at it through ignorant eyes. I didn't understand what that thing was. It's like expecting to drive a car and sitting in the cockpit of an airplane. I was thinking like a car driver and suddenly put in the seat of a pilot of a 747. And I was like, this thing's not going to drive. It's like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. This thing flies. Like, it's a different model. Sorry for all the swearing. I'm just passionate about this. And I swear every 4 words anyway. So the fact of the matter is that what I encourage agents to do is just get real about what it is that you expect your business to do for you, and stop pretending that you're not in charge of it. Like, this is just sort of like the hard, cold reality that if you want your business to produce income for you, well, then just figure it out, because the income and all the machinery behind that already exists. There's actually no secrets. There's no secrets. Matt showed you guys the tool, RE Profit. It'll tell you exactly the budgets, the ROI. It'll tell you everything that you need. If you choose not to use that, that's fine, but you need a tool, because you're probably not somebody who went to bookkeeping school or accounting school. So figure out what tool that is. For me, because RE Profit didn't exist, I hired a bookkeeper and I paid an outrageous amount of money to get them to figure it out. But what I promised myself was while I paid that money, I was going to learn. Like, to me, that was schooling. I was getting a college course on how to run a business actually from the financial side. I hated my accountant. Like, my first 3 accountants all hated me too. They wanted to fire me because I was constantly challenging them. I was questioning everything. I was wrong 90% of the time, right? But and again, they show me a P&L and I'm like, that's not right. Like, there's no way I'm losing that much money. They're like, yeah, that's right. Like, it doesn't make sense. How could I be losing that much money? Somebody asked a question earlier about where the money comes from, the available capital. And it was such a brilliant question because it speaks to the thinking that most of us have around our finances and our business, which is that we think like bank account business owners, meaning we look at the bank balance and we allow that to dictate what our business is doing. It's completely wrong. Nobody ever teaches you this stuff. Like, you don't understand the money in the bank is not your money. But, well, how can it not be my money? It shows up with my name on it. It's my money, right? It's not your money. It belongs to your business. If you think like a business owner, you'll understand it belongs to your business. And then it also, a portion of it belongs to the IRS. So you actually only get to have a certain amount of it, but it's so confusing because they give me the check with my name on it and they let me put it in my bank account. So it should be my money, right? Should be, but it isn't. And so this whole transition and thinking and changing the relationship with money and then starting to understand how it flows, which I know Matt went through that whole process, is really the foundation for how you're going to build a big business. Let me take 2 minutes because I know I'm ranting and I'm probably, some of your ears are bleeding, but let me just take 2 minutes and talk about how your business grows with more clarity inside of it, okay? The thing that people don't understand about profit and what's so tricky, especially when you're running a small business and where most of what your business is throwing off is the money that you keep, right? So most of us in real estate are throwing off a certain amount of money, and that money is what we get to keep, right? So let's say that your business, your 1099 income is $400,000 and you have $150,000 in expenses. That means that you get to keep $250,000, right? That's your money that you get to keep. What's so tricky to understand is as the business grows, a certain amount of that money you shouldn't be keeping. You should be reinvesting. Like, it should become water and seeds for the future of your business. The only way that works is if your lifestyle stays at a certain level and your business continues to grow. The thing that we get stuck in is we start to grow our lifestyle at the same rate as our business grows. And then here's what's really screwed up. You get comfortable. You hit a point where your lifestyle meets your needs and your thinking isn't big enough. And that's when you just hit the brakes, right? So maybe that level is, and we call that our financial thermostat. Maybe for you guys, that's $200,000 a year in income. Maybe it's $300,000 in income. But the point is that your business will never grow beyond that if you stop thinking bigger around what your business can do if you just put a little bit of money into it. So for me, you have to think of your business like a baby. How many of you guys are parents? Just show me your hands, right? Right, tons of parents. What do you want for your kids? Your business is just another baby. It's another child. So like, if you could provide as much available resources to your kid, would you? Of course you would. So at some point in time, would you say like, you know what? I'm going to take my kid out of school in 4th grade. That's probably a good enough education for them. Would you ever do that? What? They can read by 4th grade. Like, they'll probably be able to do so, right? They're probably fine. They'll be able to, I mean, they can get dressed. They can, I have a 4th grader, like pretty, I mean, you know, she needs some help once in a while, but she'd probably be all right if she just stopped learning now. We would never do that. We want our kids to go to school and college, and we get crazy about what we do for our kids, but not our businesses. Your business is the same exact thing. What would you provide to your business in order to allow it to grow? If you have no profit, the answer is nothing. The answer is nothing, because ultimately money is the fuel that drives that engine. But you won't get there until you decide. So here's what happens when you have a $2.6 million business and 24.6% profit margin. I get to decide what to invest in. I get to decide who to hire. I get to look at the future of my business, which I want my business to do $4 million in GCI next year. And I get to look at that and say, who are the people that I need to hire in order to help me get there? And here's the thing, I'm not hiring on the come, I'm hiring from available resources, which means that I'm in charge of how that works out. I'm much more confident in the positions that we take. It's very tricky, it's very tricky, but it starts with your thinking. So all of you guys, as you come to this agent wealth building class, you've got all the tools you need. Like Matt just delivered, this is session 2, right?
Yep.
Of 4?
Yep.
So you just got the PhD in what you need to know. Now the question is, what are you going to do with it? Because the action is where this is the reason that there's only so many teams that are doing over $2 million in gross commission, because people fail to take action because it's painful. Like, these things are not fun. Looking at your P&L every Monday morning at 7 a.m., that's terrible. I didn't sign up for that. I don't want to do that. But I know that I'm never going to get my business to the next level until I do that. No, I mean, Matt, the people that know me, I'm not a morning person. I do not like getting up in the morning, and I do.
I had a meeting with him at 7 a.m. this morning, actually. He wasn't that friendly.
No, I am not friendly at 7 a.m.
I asked him to grab me a coffee. He actually said no.
I didn't say no. I said, well, I wasn't planning on it. Yeah. So, but which I wasn't. That's just true. But the fact is that I'm not a morning person. I don't like to do it, but I do it because I have a big enough vision for what I want my business to do for me. And when your thinking gets really clear that this business you all already have it. You have the most powerful thing out there. There is no other business that's going to create this much opportunity for you. So you just literally just turn it on, get really clear about your thinking, and decide that if wealth building is important to you, stop being on the sidelines and watching and start getting into action. And for me, that change point for me was that 1099 that showed up in January of 2012 that said I made a bunch of money. And I was like, that makes no sense. Like, I don't get it. I made more money as an advertising salesperson working for a company in a W-2. I made less money, almost half as much. And yet I had no trouble paying my bills. My credit score was great. And my life was like on autopilot. And here I was 3 years later making double the amount according to what I thought I was making. And I was broke. I had no money left. I owed the IRS $70,000. My wife was always pissed at me because I was always working 7 days a week. After, the pattern was off. There was a misfire. And it just, that clarity about understanding that the purpose of business is to fund a perfect life, which means you need to speak the language of finance. If you don't speak that language.
There's something you said that I just want to jump in and make sure everybody caught it, because it's something I usually stress when we're going through this class, and I don't know that I stressed it enough. This is an agent wealth building class, and a lot of people come because they want to find out about the next 2 sessions, like investing in real estate, flipping houses, buying rental properties, all that stuff. And the thing I try to drive home the most, and Matt just said it, is our greatest opportunity to build wealth is our business. It's the thing that's going to create the fuel that allows us to do all the other stuff. Like, we're blessed to be in a business where we can literally choose what we want our income to be. And if we're willing to go out and commit to the work, we can produce that income. And then do what Matt said, which is keep our lifestyle in check. Our opportunity to invest is the gap between our lifestyle and the income we generate. Because that gap is the money we have left over to put to work for us so it can make more money that's not an exchange of our time for money. So, like, the biggest thing that I hope folks take away is, 1, take action like Matt's saying. We talked about that a lot in the beginning. And 2, understand that your biggest wealth building opportunity is your business. Like, it's not the stuff we're going to talk about. That's how you take the hard work that generates the fuel and you go and you let it work for you. But your business is the thing that's going to create the opportunity to go do that stuff. Right?
In fact, Matt, I would even say that the stuff you're going to talk about in session 3 and 4 are way more dangerous and imperiled as far as creating, like, flipping and investing. Like, there's so much more inherently built into there's risk built into that your real estate business does not have. Like, you can just go sell a house and get 2.5 to 3% in being a service business where all of the risk is carried by the broker, all the liabilities carried by the broker, and you get to go and get that margin. all day long, every day on a very small actual cash investment. And it's a highly scalable, highly leverageable business. All these other businesses are awesome, but those are the fruit that you get to invest in after you've created income. The problem is we go make $20,000 and then we go spend $20,000 on investment property that's not cash flowing enough to pay us back at a rate that makes sense. There's nothing wrong with investing, but your business is always going to grow faster than anything else. Time and time again, it's proven. Like Gary Killer brings these people up on stage, right? They're like, oh, the guy got into business 18 minutes ago and he made $487,000 last year. And everybody's like, what? How did he do that? Like, it's really there. Like, it's a very viable path. And there's been so many people that have walked it. And by the way, I am so indebted to the people at our company who have taught me, trained me, given of their time, been so gracious at every roadblock. And I just want to say, I am available to do that for anybody that's here. If you ever want to take 5 minutes, ask a question, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help. And that's just the pay it forward. Like, I have had so many, and a lot of you folks that have met me because I probably came to your market center and taught a free class at some point. I'm so all about that. And it's just a part of giving back. Like, a lot of people have helped me along the way, and I really enjoy it and love this company and love what it's done for me. And, so I'm sorry, I'm ranting a lot here.
So Matt, let me ask you this.
I drank one of these. I think it's this thing. I think this thing did it. This is one of these.
There you go.
Yeah.
So we're significantly over, and the majority of the crowd has continued to hang out. So they're obviously getting value from it. So here's what I would ask you. If you had to give one nugget of value to everybody on the call, and then if you have the time, we'll take 2 or 3 questions for Matt. But if you had to give one piece of advice to everybody on the call, what would it be?
It's totally cliche, but it's work on yourself first. The reality is that had I not been in a place where I was willing to accept that my thinking was wrong, I never would have been open to learning the things I needed to learn. And so at some point, there's the classic breakdown before the breakthrough. I'm in the midst of my second audible through Ray Dalio's Principles book, which is just fascinating and so in alignment with my thinking. And the guidance I would tell you all is, forget what you know. You don't know anything. Like, I don't know anything. Matt doesn't know anything. In the scheme of all there is to know, you don't know anything. Like, you have some modicum of knowledge around certain things, but most of that is programming that you spent the first portion of your life establishing to help you figure out how to navigate life from this point forward. As soon as you let go of thinking that you know anything, the opportunities become so obvious that you don't know anything. And since you don't know anything, you're open to every opportunity that's out there. And as soon as you can start thinking like that, you stop being grounded in this, like, this concrete mindset that, like, that doesn't work for me, that doesn't work for me, that doesn't work for me. Anytime you find yourself saying that, you're already eliminating future opportunities. So the key is just be very open. Like, I often say, like, I'm a very easy yes. Like, I say yes to everything. It's always yes how, yes when, or I just say yes because I'm trying to learn more and more and more. And the faster you train your thinking around that, the faster you'll get this stuff right. Early inside of your business, you have to be open to learning from people who've walked it before you and realize that, like, most of the people that you're learning from didn't make this stuff up. Most of them learned it from someone else who learned it from someone else. Like, the stuff that's being handed down here is like time-honored tradition for a reason, because it actually works. So don't second guess it, just do it.
All right, cool. Anyone have questions?
I do. This is Nidra.
Hello, Nidra.
Thank you so much for your time, you guys, for going over. I actually have RE Profit, and I've been using it. Yeah, I've been using it for a little over 2 years now, and I do look at my profit and loss. I'm a single agent. I don't have a team. I'm not on a team. I'm just a single agent. And I find that the platform is very, very user friendly and it works for exactly what I want it to work for. But what do you suggest I do in order to expand on that? To, I guess, learn how to take the knowledge that I'm getting from the P&L and applying it to my 401s, my GPS, and all of that. Like, I feel like I'm doing all of the motions, but I don't know what to do with them.
I'll tell you what, Nidra, since you decided to come on here, just connect with me directly and you and I'll take that call one-on-one, because it's too many I don't know yet. I don't know. I'd have to look at your P&L with you and actually dive in and give you some suggestions. So, the first thing obviously is if you're fully, engaged in RE Profit, then you have an ROI report. And inside of your ROI report, it's going to tell you where you're spending money that's giving you the highest return. Correct. And the fact of the matter is that is really those are your buoys in the path to tell you which direction you ought to be going in, right?
So that's basically, okay, that makes sense. Then I think that's what I've been doing. I just feel like I've hit a wall of knowledge or so in a sense.
Yeah, and I'm happy to take 5 minutes, 10 minutes and go through it with you and give you some guidance. I mean, the fact is that everything comes down to activity will create your output. So what I hear you saying is you're frustrated with the pace at which your business is growing. Oftentimes, if our business isn't growing at the pace that we want it to, it's really an activity question. If you're already tied into your P&L, all you need to do is now ramp up the activity that produced the outcome, and your outcome should increase as well. So, and that's really a time question and a time blocking question and a calendar question. But I'll tell you, you could reach out to me directly and we can chat through that.
Thank you very much.
And here's the other thing we'll add to that. Matt's actually kicking off, Matt and the rest of the team at RE Profit are actually kicking off Financial Fridays. They're going to be doing, for all the people involved in RE Profit, they're going to be doing Financial Fridays where they do interviews and talk about financial topics. Quick bursts, 15 minutes a day on Fridays in the morning. And they're also launching success sessions. So they're going to be doing 30-minute group sessions where you can come on and you'll have access to people like Matt to ask these kinds of questions. Like you'll be able to come on. And
this topic around profitability is obviously very hot inside our company. And I can tell you inside of Gary Keller's group, it's one of the most talked about things around, how are we maintaining our profit levels? How are we, increasing our, where are we investing, et cetera. And so we're going to be having guests from that group, guests from the space around real estate, from multiple different companies on our Financial Fridays, really just answering a couple of real quick questions. So we hope that that'll deliver a ton of value. We'll be kicking that off, and every Friday morning, it's going to be at 9 a.m.
And people that are already enrolled will be notified of that?
Yep. You'll be notified. We'll broadcast it on the RE Profit Facebook page. It's not going to be a top secret thing. We really just want to engage people in the conversation at a higher level and get people to really start to understand like how this conversation will change your life if you're willing to have it, which is why I said the first thing you need to do is change your mindset, because most people are not willing to have it. They want to look at it and they want to be stuck in that thinking around like, that can't be right. That's not accurate. I don't like what it says. So the whole thing must be wrong. It's not wrong. It's just the thinking behind it. So
I want to jump in and just give you a quick compliment. Where you're at is actually a really good place. Like you have created a habit around the financials of your business. And now you're at a point that you have that habit. You're going, okay, now that I have this, how do I use it at a high level to make business decisions? Like that's exactly where we all want to get. Like we got to start out by creating a habit that allows us to have access to the information in a usable format. And then when we get there, we start to go, okay, I know how to read it now. Now, how do I start to use this to write my business instead of read my business, right? Like what are the dials I can push, the levers I can pull to cause something to happen with the information that I now have available to me. So it's an awesome place that you're at because you're further down the road than you think you are.
Yeah, I'm a prodigy of Hank Sorensen, so.
Oh, nice. I know Hank. Yeah, awesome. All right, cool. What else from Matt? Real quick, we'll take one more. Go ahead.
So Matt, I just started into real estate not too long ago. I just started Keller Williams back, I believe, like March, around right when the pandemic really hit. So I've been struggling trying to figure out, I know, right? I've been trying to figure out the balance between, which I still haven't done, the kids and their schoolwork and then this, because I'm always all into my work. But do you recommend doing that profit and loss rather than doing like with a financial advisor or that kind of, or should you do both?
Well, you ultimately will need to do both because, you know, the fact is that a financial advisor, their role is to help you with the money that you've earned and help you figure out where to invest it. But your profit and loss is what's going to actually give you a map on how to actually earn some money. So the trick, again, the thing that's so important to understand, and it's Janice, right?
Correct.
The thing that's important to understand is the money that you get in your paycheck when you get that check at the closing is not your money.
Right.
I understand that that does not make sense to anybody that's here, but that is why you need a P&L so that you can start to see and understand the flow in that money it's owed to other sources. It's owed. When it comes in, you don't actually get it yet. You have to pay off all the stuff that it costs to get to that paycheck,
right,
including the IRS. The IRS is just money that's due when you get paid. It's not due beforehand, but it's not actually due April 15th. It's due the day you get it. You just have to think that way. So when that $10,000 check comes in, you've got to have a real clear understanding of the fact that $3,000 of that is likely to go to the IRS. Now, we get the benefit of being business owners. We can write stuff off. We can buy cars and depreciate them and do all kinds of cool stuff. Forget all that. None of that, like, you're not supposed to be accounting experts, but you do have to be the CEO of the business, which means that you have to understand how much of the money is available to you and how much is not. That's actually all your P&L is supposed to tell you.
Okay.
Is like the money comes in, how much of it can I use? How much can I not use? But if you don't have the P&L, the trick is you'll never know how much is available. So you'll never actually get to the place where a financial planner will be of any value to you.
Gotcha.
Right? You got to know what is the business throwing off. I get it. I went through this mental gymnastics of trying to understand how much is enough, like how much accounting is enough knowledge. It's actually pretty basic. You don't have to have a real high level understanding of accounting function in order to be a CEO. That's why CEOs have CFOs, right? CEOs have to understand the basics, like how much of it is available to me, how much are we spending, and what is the thing that's the best thing to do with the money that I have available to me. You just need to get deep enough into your P&L to start to ask the right questions so that you know the answers to those.
And you said that website or that link was going to be posted on here?
Yeah, it's in the chat box. I'll post it again. You know, honestly,
while he's reposting that, the other thing I'll say is, one, credit to you for being on a call like this early. Like, you have the opportunity to never develop bad habits, right? Like, I was in the military and we went to the firing range and they teach you how to shoot. I will tell you, the drill sergeant hates the guy from Kentucky.
Right.
Shooting since he was 8 years old because he thinks he knows everything and he's got a ton of bad habits, right? He wants the dude from Manhattan who's never even seen a weapon in his life, right? Because he's got a clean slate to work with. He doesn't have to correct a bunch of bad habits. So you're in a position to start right and never have to unwind bad habits if you just embrace what you're learning right now today.
Thank you. No, I really appreciate it. I mean, Keller Williams has been a blessing. I jumped into Keller Williams when I was like in the, excuse my French, the shithole of my career, my life. So definitely, you know, looking forward to getting as much training and knowledge and speaking to as many of you and I don't want to use the word senior but you're more experienced agents. I come from the car business. I've been in the car business 10, 12 years almost. And I quit cold turkey because the hours sucked and I wanted to work from home. So sales has been my background. I just have to figure out, you know, you were talking about, Matt, you know, you're the fourth grader in reading. So my daughter's standing behind me. She's supposed to be doing her Zoom. And I was like, you know what? She's in first grade. She's at a third grade level. You know what? Her work can wait till next week. I'm not doing it. I need to work right now. So, you know, it's going to be tricky trying to find a balance, but I'm looking forward to working with you guys and kind of keeping me grounded and figure out, what the next step forward is.
Awesome. Love it. All right, folks, we got to let Matt go. We got to let all of you go. So I appreciate you guys showing up again. Matt, I appreciate you taking not only the time to plan, but the extra time to engage. You've got Matt's contact information, so you can reach out to him if you have other questions or you want to tap into his knowledge. And then I will see everybody again next week as we start to transition away from the fundamental things, which I'm going to keep stressing are the most important, to when we do all the right things and we have that capital, right, that gap between our lifestyle and our earnings, we're going to talk about strategies of what we can do with that. So I appreciate all of you, and we will see you next week.
Thank you.